Hey everyone, this is Stan with frontBrick, and today we're going to be talking about our ABM motion and how to actually turn B2B leads into buyers with a more sophisticated ABM system. Most B2B leads do not become buyers after one cold email, one cold call, a couple of ads, or just a couple of clicks. It just doesn't happen that way in a modern landscape. They often need more than 15 touches over several months or even more touches to trust you enough to even respond. And when they respond, that they had real intent and they're kind of in a buying stage, so you can really turn them into pipeline and not just another positive reply. But there's one problem. If those touches are disconnected and you have your marketing team advertising on LinkedIn, Google, Meta, with their own motion and kind of audience, and then you have sales team and SDRs in their own prospecting to their own set of accounts, there's always a clash between marketing and sales into who gets the credit for this lead, where did this lead came from, our analytics are broken, and so on. And it's always just very hard to basically have a systematic way to work on same accounts and really truly bring marketing and sales together and stop bothering around the conversions in a sense of like analytics, but actually start generate pipeline. So in this video, I'll basically show you how you can move buyers from the first impression, from the moment they see your ads, all the way to the qualified conversation. And after building pipeline systems for over 50 Series A to Series B startups that really go after enterprise companies, our experience tells that isolated channels rarely work. And then if all the channels work in tandem, going after the same list of accounts and people by name, that's how you actually win in this game. So here's a good example. We had our client, their Series A startup. They came to us and say, hey, this CMO of this company just booked a call with us. Our HubSpot says it came from direct search. Basically, they just punched in our website and that's how they found us. But then our sales team asked them something on the sales call, which is how did you find us? And then the CMO said, I've been seeing your stuff around for a couple of months on LinkedIn, some really good content. I really like that content. Then I Googled you, I checked out your website, I read a couple of really good articles. Then I was really trying to see what is the best solution for our company. So I asked AI, I went to ChatGPT and Claude and asked what is the best solution for our business, and your name popped up. And around the same time, I also got a couple of DMs from one of your SDRs. I also got a very good cold email just a couple of days ago. And I just decided today basically to book the call with you because now it's the time for us and now this is what we need. So what this tells us is that this buyer was on the list long enough. We built enough trust and they actually move through stages when they're ready to really embody its solutions. And that's the moment when they book the call. To help you visualize this customer journey, this is just a skeleton of how it looks. I know it looks ugly, but this is the timeline. We have 5 months here and then we have all the activities. So somebody can see your ad 15 times. They can check out your website at that moment and still not convert. That's why you'll see a lot of people visiting the website and companies and just nothing happens. They can read your blog, they can see your ads a couple of more times. At that time, if they have enough engagement, your sales team will send them a DM or they'll just get a cold email. Then they will Google your name and then they will actually convert into demo. Again, your CRM might say direct, but how you can actually prove that something like this works, we have a system for that. And basically this is what you see. Like you see all the companies that exist in your CRM with the engagement level, with how many times they saw our ads, with basically how we influence different deals within the CRM, how many deals we actually won as a result, and also very granular, like on a specific company level, what happened, like a timeline. We started advertising in May. Then, for example, we continued advertising in May. We sent a couple of cold emails in June. In July, we created a deal in our CRM and then it popped up here on the dashboard. And then you can really construct the timeline. That way, marketing gets credit for what they do, sales get credit for what they did, and ultimately, your company generates revenue. So that's the whole point of the ABM. So you might ask, so with all of these channels, how do I know, what is each channel supposed to do and how can I optimize for which channels to kind of push more? So my suggestion to all of our clients in the way that we do things here at frontBrick is we give every channel a specific job. So LinkedIn ads, we usually go after thought leader ads. Those are the ads that you boost from companies, employees, like personal profiles, because people buy from people, you really build a connection, and people engage more end of the day with that content. Those types of ads we normally run for reach, brand awareness, and just to build trust and see how well our content resonates with the audience. Then our website content, obviously, as just any website, has a couple of different jobs. That's to educate anyone who lands on the website, but also to convert, build more trust and authority through the content, and kind of explaining how well we do what we do, what are the problems that we solve. Then we also have retargeting ads, which we typically assign to Meta and Google, where we also do some branded searches to kind of just protect the brand, or maybe some high intent keywords as well. And then we reserve LinkedIn messages and DM messages and cold emails for time where we feel like account is warm enough. People in these accounts have seen our ads enough times, they've engaged enough, they visited our website, and we layer third-party signals on top, like funding new hires and all of these signals. So that way you have like a full picture of the account, of the person, and then every channel has its own specific job. So start with LinkedIn to kind of build initial trust and have people engage with your content, not to convert. Then retarget anyone who comes on your website with Meta ads, Google ads, and some branded search and some display ads. And then reserve outreach for basically engaged warm accounts and accounts that are actually showing these first party and third party signals as well. So to visualize this journey, we have basically two types of funnels. In traditional marketing, you have basically broad target. That's what 99% of companies are doing. So you start very broad for all of the channels, all of the disconnected channels. Then, you have some engagement that you can't really de-anonymize. That means like people who click on your website, that come to your website, you don't know who they are. They just fill out the form, which is, or, get some resources, which is kind of gated content. Then they convert maybe to a call and a deal creation happens. But that's, again, you're targeting thousands and millions of people, depending on your product. You kind of narrow it down to like 0.5% of people maybe reach your pipeline. So that's more traditional funnel, requires a ton of money, very hard to pull off today in like a modern B2B landscape. I think many resourceful companies can't really afford something like this. In an account-based world, it starts on the flip side of the coin. Basically, you start with a very narrow ICP, like you define 500 accounts, 1,000 accounts, like don't go too broad, like your proper ICP. ICP is something where I feel like many people make mistakes, but that's a different topic. We can talk about it in one of the next videos. But you start there, you start building trust with these channels because you can only advertise and you can only go after these set of accounts. Then this is the engagement you can de-anonymize. You can get basically the results of who's visiting your website, who's engaging with your ads, who's seeing your ads. And then you have outreach to really activate these accounts before you can create a deal. So that way you get just much more for your money than going broad. And to visualize that specifically with like the problems we're seeing, again, marketers say, oh, we don't see ROI per channel. We can't tie ad spend to our pipeline. Sales team is doing their own outreach and so on. And again, this is the engine workflow that we normally have. And this is how we see things, just to kind of put it in perspective and visualize it for you. So we start by building targeted lists. Basically, lists can be built from any of the B2B sources, Crunchbase, Discolike, LinkedIn, Apollo, Clay. Any of these platforms are great for that. If you can combine them, even better. Then once you get list of accounts, definitely find people that fit your ICP criteria and then upload that list to LinkedIn ads as a matched audience. If you do it properly, you'll get 90% match rate, meaning LinkedIn will match 90% of these people. From there, you can basically start working on your messaging and ads by ICP. That means that for each persona within the subset of your account, you will have to basically define all these upfront and then create different ads and different sequences for basically each one of these. And then ads, again, thought leader ads and ads that will just bring you trust and kind of start engaging with these prospects. Once you collect enough impressions, once these companies have seen your ads enough times, don't forget you have people within these companies that you're only advertising to. So if you have 3 decision makers within one company, that means that if they have 100 plus impressions, that each of them saw your ads 30 plus times on average. Or if you have engagements, meaning like they liked, commented your stuff and so on, if you collect 5 or more, I think you're good to go. Then you can sync the data back to Clay, enrich the data, get contact information, clean up the data, layer some of the first party and third party signals, like for example, see if they visit your website, you can do it inside Clay. See if they hired new key hire, you can do it within Clay. See if they have any news, again, same story. And then from there, once you have all of that data, you can activate them for basically your outreach campaigns. You can use any of the tools instantly, HeyReach, Lemlist, your choice, all of them are good. So basically that's how visually the workflow looks. Now that we have this kind of visual workflow in front of us, I'll just walk you through very quickly, step by step, how you can build your audience initially in the simplest possible way, how you can basically format that and send directly into LinkedIn ads, how you can extract the data from LinkedIn ads with all the engagement, how you can basically match that audience, enrich with signals, and then send into your activation sequences. So let's dive in. How you can use any of the platforms. We'll start here from Clay, and we'll basically head over to find leads section here, and we'll go after find people. So here, the filters that we have, we can use Sculptor here. I'm just going to use basically my keyboard here, and I'm going to speak to AI just to kind of speed up the things. I use poking before it just to kind of simplify things, and it's going to help me basically create the audience that I want. So let's go. So find me ancillary revenue leaders and loyalty leaders and marketing leaders within big passenger airlines anywhere in the world that have a minimum of 200 employees. So what we did here, basically we sent just basically like a prompt, and from here we're going to be able to basically configure all the filters, check if everything is fine, and then move forward. So airlines and aviation, company sizes, we need job functions here. We probably don't need that one. These are basically all the keywords that we're looking for. And then let's go with contains, and we have experience, location, so on. We don't need any of that. It's at 782. Again, ideally you'll want a little more than that, but this is probably across, there's only like 100 companies that are on our list here. So we're gonna hit continue and then create a new workbook and a table here. So that was basically the first step for us. Now we won't do any of the enrichments early on because it's not necessary quite early. But what we have here is basically a list of people that, let's say, we want to go after. Obviously, you can qualify this list further with enriching right now, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to sync this into the audience. So what you can do is you can head over to ads, you can click create ad sync, you can click people here, and then you have a couple of different ways you can do that. You can either search the existing audience within Clay here, or you can do it from companies as well. So we'll just click create audience here, and we'll say demo airlines. We'll click create audience. So then from here, obviously we had to add people to our audience and then be able to connect our accounts to be able to sync the data through. So when we're here in audiences, we're going to go on to add data, add source. Now you can have multiple sources. If you have your data anywhere in the CRM or anyone else, you can do that as well. Just click play tables here, and we will import, we'll say airlines demo, and we will import one of the tables that we already created here. Next, all of these should be mapped appropriately. So once we mapped all of these things properly, we'll just get import and we'll need company name here most likely. So our audience is basically populating right now. It's going to take a couple of moments until it populates here. So we can refresh the page, and yeah, it's numbers start popping up here. Obviously, we still don't have emails or anything else here. We will definitely need emails for our ads. So what we can do here is we can click enrich, and we can basically add an enrichment. We'll say work email, click audience here, continue. And once we're here, we can then add the enrichment, which in our case is going to be work email. We have our own flow that we follow, but you can follow any other things that you want. So we're going to have name here. Oops, it's under here. And we're just going to run 10. And once we have all of these emails, we can obviously update these audiences here. And this is something we could just click start run, and it will automatically find all the emails for us. So now we built the audience. It's time to sync it to the ads. So go here, click create ad sync. You'll find people. Click the audience that we have. You can add your LinkedIn ads, Meta ads account, Google ads account, and then basically you just create here as like description is optional, and you can even put it on schedule, meaning like if you want to add your prospects to your audiences, you can say every 2 days, whenever I have new prospects, sync it directly to my ads. You don't have to do it manually. This used to be a very manual process. Today, this is very, very simple. Click create sync. Now I haven't chosen the ad account, so it's not going to allow me, but basically once you do that, you'll be able to progress to the next stage, which is again going to be very straightforward to just sync your audiences directly within the ads. Once you basically sync this audience to LinkedIn ads, you'll start advertising to them with your content, and you'll see that as the time goes, a lot of these companies are going to start having very high engagements. You can see how many times they saw your ads and so on. It's time for you to get this data and get it back to your sales team so they can action it out and start doing outreach on it. So what you can do is you can use Fibber for that. The best way to do that is if you navigate over to activation and then signals. Here, what you can say, my signal name is ads sync. We'll say campaigns, all current live campaigns. This is where we'll have to put Clay's webhook URL. So the way to do that is basically just to go under here, click create new workbook. You need a table for that essentially. So we'll say ads sync, and then we're gonna pick webhook as a source. Click on this one, and then the next step for you is basically to paste it in here. Say you want all these engagement levels, or you want just medium, high, very high, so you don't waste time like very low engagers. And let's see in the past 60 days, for example, you can set interval to daily. When you click add signal, basically what's going to happen is that you'll start immediately, if you have results, data is going to start popping up here. So you basically see all the companies that you have. So you'll see the company name here. You'll see basically the campaign that we're running for that company. You'll see their engagement level, and you'll also get their company page URL. What you can do from here is you can say, now if I actually want to enrich these companies, because now it's a good time to do that. So you click here, say run. I'm just going to disable the auto run here for the moment. And then you can basically run the enrichment for these companies. Now, what we did so far is we had the audience, we uploaded the audience, and we started to see which companies are actually engaged. From here, what you will want to do is basically you will want to match this against your original list to see which people were on that list of companies. So if we say, look up audiences here, you'll say object type is companies, or actually, sorry, I think it's inside people. We'll say we'll filter by a domain, I believe. Domain equals company domain that we have here. So if we type in domain, we'll find it. And basically we just run this. So now what happens, we can see that in each of these companies, we have 5 decision makers in our audience. And we know that, if this company has a very high engagement, meaning they saw us 100 times or more and really are engaging with our content. From here, what we can do is basically we can start actioning out these people, right? We have companies, we know they're engaged. It's time to send some good leads to our sales team. So from there, we basically have all of these people where we have their name. See here, we have the first name of this person. We have the last name of this person. We have their LinkedIn profile as well, and all the data that we need. From here, obviously, you can layer additional enrichments, such as maybe third-party signals here, meaning like if there's some news about the company, maybe new hires or job postings or anything else, you can add that to make your outreach even more relevant, and then do that basically that way. From here, once you have that data, everything becomes easier. You can say, I want to send this over to do LinkedIn outreach directly in my HeyReach account, in my Instantly account, in my Lemlist account, and basically start doing the outreach for these companies. So if we come back to this aspect one more time, we built target lists, we uploaded to ads. We haven't obviously done this part, but then imagine we did it. And then here we basically brought that data back, segmented the data, did some of the enrichments, and now it's ready for outreach. Now that you've seen under the hood how the workflow looks, if you want to get this exact template, it's linked here in the description. And if you'd like to see how you can do this in even more simple agentic way using Cloud Code or Codex or any of the AI agents, make sure to check out our next video.